Streets of Rage is back. Streets of Rage 4 just came out for Xbox. It's got all the classic old school beat 'em up vibes that I had in the past, with some updated graphics and brand new art style. Apparently Mr. X from the previous games had kids, and they're just as corrupt as he was. His kids are known as the Y-Twins, and they're up to no good. The Y-Twins and their goons will do everything to try and stop your team from undoing their plans. Guns, swords, ninja stars, and acid-spitting snakes. You get to jump right back into the world of Streets of Rage. The newest change for this installment was the art design. I was a little put off by the graffiti-esque design, but you can tell there was a lot of time put into making these characters' environments look and feel like the old school games. Once the game started, I realized that there was a lot left in from the original games, and the art style is actually pretty good. There are also several images when watching the cutscenes that make the game almost look like a comic book. This game is so similar to the previous Streets of Rage games. Many of the characters make their return to the series in this one. Axel, Blaze, and Adam from the original are the first few characters that you can play with. Max and Skate are back from Streets of Rage 2, but there are also villains who came back as well. Shiva, the final henchman before you fought Mr. X in the second game, is back and updated. There are even some new characters for this one. Floyd, a giant man with mechanical arms that makes ragdolls of his opponents, and Cherry, a guitar-wielding kid who's actually Adam's daughter. Each of the characters has their own strengths and weaknesses. Old reliable Axel is pretty much the same character he's always been, with all the same moves from the second Streets of Rage. Cherry has several fast attacks but lacks power. She can stack together some high combos if you're really good with her. Floyd manhandles enemies. He'll pick them up and walk around with them, including bosses. His reach and strength are the greatest among the first 4 playable characters. He really owns enemies, and he was a lot of fun to play. Blaze is a nice balance of each. She's faster than Axel and has better reach, but does not have as much power. She's not as quick as Cherry, but does hit harder. She flows a little bit better than most of the characters with some of her moves, and is a little bit more proficient with weapons. Playing with each of the characters will give you a good sense of who really suits your playstyle, so trying each of them is recommended. If you've just finished a level and didn't like the character choice, you're given an option to switch characters after each stage. Many of the former characters are unlockable as well, but the craziest part is that the pixelated versions of these characters from the previous games are also unlocked. If you really like Streets of Rage 1's Adam, or Streets of Rage 2's Axel, you can actually get to play as these characters. They don't require any special unlocks or hidden bosses either. You need only play the game and your score will add to an overall total of all your playthroughs, which has a visible benchmark for each of your unlocks. You can get a higher score based on lives and health remaining, stars remaining, and time for completion. The higher your score, the better the rank you'll get and even more points towards the next unlock. The music in this game is also filled with throwbacks. The first stage, for example, has music from the very beginning of Streets of Rage 2. At a certain point, the music will change to something more modern, but that first introduction into the first stage hits you right in the nostalgia feels with the classic music. Even some of the sound effects like the item pickup or the grand upper from Axel is pretty much the same. The music is done so well that there are certain parts I couldn't help but get into. The feel of the game is just right for an arcade beat-em-up classic. Basic attacks with only a few variations for specials and combo setups. The combat is a fun button masher without any kind of complicated combat. There isn't even a block button. You just have to move slightly off track of the enemy who's attacking you and make enough distance that they won't hit you. There are even a few stage hazards that can be used to your advantage. Even though this is very much a classic arcade game, I do wonder if this game has enough to be interesting. We've seen this game before, and simply updating the graphics doesn't really do much for adding to the core gameplay. Would Streets of Rage benefit from making something in more than 2D, or having more complicated combat? Or would that change what made this series so much fun and nostalgic? Much of the time your character will be outnumbered during regular fights, and sometimes there will be stage hazards. The combination of both can decimate your health bar. If you get overwhelmed or there's a boss that's continually beating you, it could be game over. The good news is that there's an assist mode to help you if you're just not doing well. There are different assists that can activate, like adding lives or stars. The trade-off is that the end score is divided by a bigger number the more assists you use. The story mode is a little short, but appropriate for this kind of game. You can get through the whole game in one sitting if you're really dedicated. If you're up to the challenge, there's an arcade mode that allows you to do just that. Once the game is over, it's over. You have to finish the game in one run through and won't save if you quit the game. This and the fact the level flows so well one after another are one of its strengths. The transition from one of the levels has you fighting on a boat all the way up to its bridge, and the place you crash into is actually the next level. The difficulty can sometimes take a spike, but it's more of understanding the patterns of the enemies. Once you understand their attacks, you know what to expect and can have an easier time getting through the level. The options for attacks are limited, and most of the time you'll find yourself chasing enemies or trying to get them when they get close. Your character always walks at just above a strut, and several of the enemies are faster than you. The bosses literally circle your character, and it feels like you're the only one wearing weighted shoes. The enemies also stay just out of reach and can cover much of the distance across the screen to hit your character. Restricted movement and not having a block button can get pretty frustrating pretty fast. If assist mode isn't helping you and you'd like some backup, there is an option to join online games. I'd love to tell you how great it is, but it felt like it didn't work most of the time. The connection would be lost or lobby full was usually the response I'd get back. When it does work though, this game is so much fun. Getting to beat enemies together and setting up combos for each other is the way this game was meant to be played. Unfortunately, there's a setting for friendly hits that most people don't seem to be aware of. Because of this, you often have to avoid each other so you don't accidentally do damage to them. When it's off though, your team can drop some pretty nice combos on regular baddies and bosses. Even though it's fun to play online, there are often big lag spikes. Some of the hosts that I played with dropped out mid-connection at least 4 different times. Other times the game would freeze from anywhere from 2 seconds to 30 seconds without knowing if you're going to make it out to the other side. You'd think that this game would be pretty stable considering the genre and limited players, but it's a constant issue that really takes away from the momentum. You also can't have more than 2 people to an online game. Why wasn't this game able to have up to 4 people online? It would have been a perfect number to have all the characters from the cutscenes. Local co-op is possible, and in this mode you can actually have up to 4 people like you should have had online. How often are you actually going to have 4 people over who want to play though? Streets of Rage 4 brings back so many things that made the original series great. The music, the original characters, the addictive gameplay, and the fun beat-em-up co-op that this series is so well known for. The connectivity issues and limited players during online really hinders this game. Not to mention this series in general may need to move beyond the fighting side-scroller and open up to other possibilities to really thrive and create new fans. I don't want to give the wrong impression here. This game was a lot of fun to play and really stoked that nostalgic flame for a simple but fun time that anyone can jump right into. If you're a fan of the series, this game definitely deserves a playthrough for that reason alone. With the issues of building a new community though, limited players online and connectivity problems may really hurt this one, and hopefully there will be fixes for these problems in future updates. So that's Streets of Rage 4. If you enjoyed the video or thought it was interesting, please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.